My hand hovered over the brass doorknob, cold metal, smooth from decades of palms pushing through. I should knock, but announce myself like a proper daughter returning home at 9:47 on a Tuesday night. But paused because I heard laughter inside the drawing room. My father's rich, confident voice cut through first. The voice he used when he was about to close a deal or ruin someone's life. She still lives in that sad apartment. My dad laughed while my sister showed off her new Tesla. I knew the television would soon flash that Aether's initial public offering had vaulted the company's valuation past $500 million. And the chief executive officer was me. He did not know that, not yet. Another round. Gentlemen. My father's voice carried the sound of expensive scotch and effortless disregard. Glass clinked, ice rattled. My sister, Sloan's laugh followed. Sharp and bright, I knew, that sound. She reserved it for moments when someone was about to be destroyed and did not know it yet. I had heard it. Heard it directed at opposing counsel, at nurses who displeased her, and at me when I was 19 and stupid enough to think my computer science degree impressed anyone in this family. I should have family dinner. I should have driven back to my anonymous apartment, the one with second-hand furniture and working locks that kept out everyone. Including the people who shared my last name. But then I heard 3 words that rooted my feet to the Persian runner beneath them. Rosewood Cottage sale. My grandmother's house. It was the only place in my entire childhood where someone had looked at me and seen something other than a disappointment in a cardigan. I leaned closer. The door was old, the seal imperfect. Sound traveled. 20 million. My father's voice carried the weight of confession. Bad cases. Thought I could win them. Gambled wrong. Bryce Sterling spoke next. My ex-boyfriend, Bryce Sterling. Dinner. He had told me I was brilliant right before he told me I was not wife material. His voice had that oily quality investment bankers cultivated. Smooth and slick, utterly without friction. Already counting his cottage commission. The cottage appraises at $850,000. Quick sale, clean paperwork. My commission is 8% $160,000 for me. Enough to cover your immediate obligations. Sloan laughed again. A sound devoid of humanity. And Jordan never has to know the extent of the problem, she said. She will not ask questions. She never does. Just signs whatever you put in front of her and smiles like a grateful puppy. My chest tightened, not with surprise, but with recognition. I could fix this right now. I could open this door, walk in, and offer to write a check. $20 million was nothing, less than nothing. Here. Aether Systems had cleared $40 million in revenue last quarter alone, and the initial public offering opened tomorrow morning at a projected $84 per share. But I did not move. Because my father was still talking, delivering the second, heavier blow. Do not worry about her. She is too stupid to read the fine print. She will sign whatever we put in front of her, just to get a pat on the head. The words landed like a fist to the sternum, not a slap, but a punch that knocked the air from my lungs and left me silently gasping. Stupid. The word echoed the narrative they had fed me my entire life. Stupid. Sloan's voice dripped with contempt. She has been playing with computers for years. Still no real job. Still living in that sad little apartment. Everyone asking when she will grow up and get a real career. She will not even understand what she is signing? Bryce added, calculating his angle. Just tell her it is trust fund paperwork. She will believe anything. My hand dropped from the doorknob. 3 years ago, I had paid off $50,000 of Sloan's credit card debt anonymously. I thought I was protecting them. Dinner, trying to be the silent protector. But they just saw the sacrifice as weakness. Standing in that hallway, with my family's laughter echoing through the door, I felt something shift. Something cold and clean and sharp. They did not misunderstand me, but they despised my intelligence because it threatened their control. I turned. My footsteps made no sound on the runner as I walked back down the hallway and out the front door. Callan, my head of security, stood beside my car. He opened the back door without a word. I slid into the leather seat. Get me the audit logs for Scott and Partners, I said. My voice sounded different, lower, colder. Tonight, Callan's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. He saw something different now. Yes. Boss. The engine started. We pulled away from the estate, away from the people inside, who thought I was too stupid to read fine print. They were wrong. And in 24 hours, they were going to realize exactly how wrong they had been. The Four Seasons suite cost $8,000 a night. I was not staying there for the luxury. I was here because the walls were soundproof. The internet connection ran on dedicated fiber, and nobody from my family would ever look for me in a hotel that required a black card just to book a room. It was 2:30 in the morning. 3 monitors glowed blue across the mahogany desk. Each one displaying a different layer of Scott and Partners, financial infrastructure. My fingers moved across the keyboard without conscious thought. Muscle memory from 10,000 hours of coding translating into commands that peeled back every transaction, every wire transfer. Every desperate attempt my father had made to cover his losses. Aether Systems provided cybersecurity to his firm. It had for 2 years. He did not know that. He did not know that every email, every financial record, every panicked message to his accountant flowed through servers I controlled. He had called me stupid. I pulled up the first document. A case file from 18 months ago. Richard Scott, representing a pharmaceutical company against a class action lawsuit. The opposing counsel had documentation, witnesses, momentum. My father bet $6 million on a settlement that never came. He lost everything. Next file, another gamble, another loss. The pattern emerged like a fracture spreading across glass. $20 million. Gone, not stolen. Dinner? Not embezzled. Just arrogant, reckless decisions, made by a man who believed his charm could override facts. I opened Sloan's financial records next. Her surgeon salary was substantial, $280,000 a year. Should have been enough for anyone. Except she spent $580,000 annually. Designer clothes, luxury vacations. A wine collection that cost more per bottle than I paid for my first car. She had been bleeding money for years, using credit cards like they were somehow disconnected from reality, from consequence. I found the email thread buried in her personal account. Subject line: the Jordan problem. My stomach clenched, but I opened it anyway. Sloan to Richard, 3 months ago. We need to activate the family automated teller machine before she figures out she has options. Richard's response: she will not figure it out. She is too busy playing with computers. Sloan again. The cottage is the play. Sentimental value. She will do anything to keep it. We frame it as helping her. Take what we need. Move on. 3 months. They had been planning this for 3 months. I screenshotted everything, every transaction, every lie they told themselves about who I was and what I was worth. My phone buzzed at 3:15. Preston Vance. The only person outside my security team who knew the truth of my wealth. You should be sleeping, I said. So, should you? His voice carried the particular strain of someone who had spent the last 48 hours preparing for the biggest financial event of his career. The Aether initial public offering is tracking to break records. Less than 24 hours until bell. I know. Do you? He paused. Because if you do not legally sever your finances before market open, their debt becomes your liability. California family law is not your friend here. Creditors will exploit the historical shared household status immediately. The words hit like cold water. I knew this, somewhere in my brain. But hearing it stated plainly, hearing the timeline compressed into hours instead of abstract future consequences, made it real. How bad? I asked. $20 million in debt against $2.8 billion in assets. The creditors will come for you the second your net worth goes public. They will argue familial responsibility, shared household history. You will spend years in litigation, even if you win. I closed my eyes. The monitors painted blue shadows across my eyelids. Save them or save your empire, Jordan, Preston said. You do not get both. I had been saving them my whole life. Anonymous payments. Quiet fixes. Problems that disappeared before they knew problems existed. And they still saw me as stupid. I need a quitclaim deed, I said. For Rosewood Cottage. That is not enough. You need a full financial separation waiver. Every future claim. Every potential liability. Can you bury it in the language? Page 7, paragraph 3. Make it look like standard charity paperwork. Preston went quiet. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. That is scorched earth? That is survival. They will sign it without reading. You know they will. I am counting on it. Another pause. The friends and family initial public offering allocations. He said finally. If you include the waiver, they forfeit everything. How much? 1.5 million shares at projected opening. If we hit $84 per share, that is $126 million. If the stock performed the way I thought it would. But the forfeiture could become $500 million. They wanted to steal my grandmother's house for $150,000. I was about to let them sign away $500 million. Draft it? I said. Have it ready by noon? Jordan. Preston's voice softened. He almost never used my full name. Are you sure? I looked at the evidence of their contempt, displayed in financial transactions and casual cruelty. At the email where Sloan called me an automated teller machine, they had not activated yet. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. We ended the call. The suite fell silent except for the quiet hum of electronics. Survival. It was a cold, clear choice. It felt like pulling a knife from my own ribs. But knowing the extraction was necessary to live. The cold, clear choice for survival made the remaining hours of the morning feel strangely quiet. While Preston worked on the legal landmine, my family started their coordinated attack designed to soften me up. The Instagram notification hit my phone at 8:04 in the morning. I was sitting in my car outside a coffee shop, 3 blocks from my apartment, engine idling, watching steam rise from a paper cup I had not touched. The screen lit up with Sloan's post. It was a photo of me at 19. But unwashed hair pulled into a messy ponytail, oversized hoodie swallowing my frame, hunched over a laptop in the corner of the campus library. Dark circles under my eyes looked like bruises. I remembered that night, 2 hours into a coding marathon. Living on vending machine coffee, and the kind of obsessive focus that makes you forget meals exist. The caption ready, Throwback Thursday. To little sis's lost years tinkering with code. Some of us grew up. Family love. Priorities. 840. 7 likes already. I scrolled through the comments, each one a small knife sliding between ribs. When will she get a real job? Such a disappointment to the family. What happened to this one? 200 comments, all of them seeing exactly what Sloan wanted them to see: the failure, the embarrassment. The family burden who never grew up. I set the phone face down. My coffee had gone cold. They were softening me up, making sure I was wounded and desperate when I walked into that library at 3 o'clock. The cruelty was precise, surgical. I drove to Rosewood Cottage alone. The gate was unlocked, it always was. My grandmother never believed in keeping people out, which was probably why she left the house to me, instead of my father. The gravel driveway crunched under my tires. Our dinner. I parked beneath the oak tree my grandmother planted when she was 23 and newly married. The house looked tired. Her white paint peeling near the roofline. Shutters that needed replacing. But the bones were good, solid. I let myself in with the key I had carried for 8 years, the one my grandmother pressed into my palm the summer before she died. This is yours, Mary, not your father's, not Sloan's, yours. Do not forget that. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old wood, and the ghost of her lavender perfume. I walked through the room slowly. The kitchen with its yellow tiles. The living room with the reading chair by the window. I sat in that chair now. On the side table. Her needlepoint still hung in the hallway. A quote from Virginia Woolf. A woman must have money and a room of her own. She stitched that when she was 67. At family dinner. After my grandfather died, and left her financially independent for the first time in her life. Dinner. She hung it in the entryway like a declaration of war. I had always been the giver, the one who fixed her computer, who sat with her during her last month. Sloan came twice. My father did not come at all. When she died, they cried at the funeral. Loud, performative grief. And then, they tried to sell her house 3 months later. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head, clear as if she was sitting across from me. At the house is wood and stone, Mary. Your dignity is what matters. I needed to remember that the cruelty they inflicted was designed to make me grateful for the few scraps they offered. I heard gravel crunch outside, footsteps on the porch. The door opened without knocking. Kalen filled the doorway, a black folder in his hands. He wore his standard uniform, but his eyes were different today, softer. The final documents. Boss. He set the folder on the side table. Everything is ready. I did not open it. I knew what was inside the quitclaim deed. The waiver, the trap that looked like surrender. He did not leave. He just stood there, hands clasped behind his back, looking at the needlepoint on the wall. They do not deserve you. His voice was rough, unused to emotion. Your grandmother would be proud of what you have built. Something in my chest loosened. Not much, just enough to breathe. Thank you, I managed. He nodded once and left. The door clicked shut behind him. My phone buzzed. Preston's name lit up the screen. IPO opens at $84 per share. You are about to become a billionaire. Ready. I type back with steady fingers. More ready than they will ever know. The grief for my lost hope for family acceptance had hardened into cold resolve. The house was saved. But not for them. I had my documents, and I had my dignity. 2 o'clock arrived faster than it should, leaving the quiet, honest wear of Rosewood Cottage behind me. I drove back to my small, anonymous apartment, where the illusion of my failure was easiest to maintain. The time for reflection was over. It was time for transformation. I stood in my bathroom, staring at the black suit hanging on the back of the door. Tom Ford, tailored to fit like armor. I had bought it 6 months ago for board meetings with investors who needed to believe a 26-year-old woman could run a company worth billions. Today, I was wearing it to a family meeting. I was not going to a family meeting. I was going to a negotiation. I dressed slowly, each piece deliberate. The suit. The white silk blouse beneath it. The Patek Philippe watch that cost more than my father's car. I watched my reflection. A stranger and yet familiar. The woman my grandmother always knew I would become, no longer hiding in an oversized hoodie. This suit was not just clothing. At family dinner, it was a physical manifestation of the $2.8 billion they thought I was too stupid to have earned. At 2:47 in the afternoon, 1 hour before market close, I got into the town car. Callan drove without asking where we were going. He knew. We were heading straight into the heart of the estate, into the room where they intended to humiliate me. I texted Preston. The bait is ready. Let them take it. His response was immediate. They will not know what hit them. Preston's certainty was a cold comfort. He understood the mathematics of this moment. But the sheer scale of the financial ruin I was about to inflict was far greater than the petty crime they were committing. They were stealing $850,000. They were about to forfeit $500 million. The gap between their perception of me and the reality of my power was the weapon. The car pulled away from my apartment building. I did not look back. That life, the life defined by their judgment, the life spent trying to earn their approval, ended today. I had spent years as Jordan, the family disappointment. Now I was stepping fully into the skin of J.M. Scott, the untouchable chief executive officer. My arc had long been defined by avoidance and quiet sacrifice. Now, it was defined by decisive, cold resolve. The suit felt heavy, yet empowering. The smooth, cool leather of the car seat felt like an ejection pod, separating me from the atmosphere of their toxic control. They had constructed their plan based entirely on the 19-year-old girl they remembered. The one who trembled and pleaded. But last night, at family dinner, they expected a nervous wreck grateful for $50,000 and a pat on the head. They expected me to take up minimal space. I would occupy the space of a billion-dollar chief executive officer, yet still let them believe they were in charge. The car slowed, turning onto the long, familiar drive. The mansion rose up, imposing and false. I was not going to a party. I was going to a negotiation. And they wanted to see me sign my life away. They would get their wish. Just not the way they expected. The control was mine now. The library smelled like leather and lies. I used to love this room when I was a kid. Back when I thought the floor to ceiling bookshelves meant my father valued knowledge. Now I knew they were just expensive wallpaper. Richard sat behind the mahogany desk like a king granting audience. His personal attorney stood beside him. Some gray suit with a forgettable face, and a very memorable hourly rate. Bryce leaned against the bookshelf to my left, arms crossed. That smug little smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The smile that said he was already counting his commission. It was 3 o'clock, 1 hour until market close. Sloan's perfume arrived 5 seconds before she did, something French and floral and suffocating. She swept past me without acknowledgement. Taking her position at Richard's right hand, the favored daughter, the one who became a surgeon, who married well, who posted perfectly filtered photos of her perfectly curated life. Thank you for coming, Jordan. Richard's voice carried that particular tone. The one that sounded warm but was not. The one he used on clients right before he explained why their case was hopeless. I know this is short notice. You said it was important. I kept my voice soft, uncertain. The way I used to sound at 19 when I desperately wanted him to notice me. To see me. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please sit. I sat, folded my hands in my lap, and let my shoulders curve inward just slightly. Dinner. The body language of someone who had never learned to take up space. The attorney slid a document across the desk. Heavy bond paper. At least 20 pages. The title was printed in bold. Trust fund release and property transfer. My heart did not race. My hands did not sweat, but I made sure. We have been discussing your future. Richard began actually sounding paternal, concerned. Like he was about to do me a favor instead of rob me blind. You are 6 years old, still trying to find your path. That is admirable. Sweetheart, but it is time we helped you get started. Started with what? I let my voice crack just a little, just enough. With your life. Sloan's tone could cut glass. We are releasing $50,000 from the family trust. Seed money for your little computer hobby. Little computer hobby. The word sat in my chest like stones. Aether Systems employed, 217 people and provided cybersecurity. Infrastructure for 70% of the Fortune 500. But I did not say any of that. Instead, I picked up the document with trembling fingers. Real trembling this time. Not from fear, but from the sheer effort of not laughing in their faces. I scanned the first page. Standard trust release language. Page 2 outlined the $50,000 payment, making it sound generous, necessary, overdue. By page 3, we were into property transfer clauses. By page 7, paragraph 3, they were taking everything. Rosewood Cottage, my grandmother's house. The deed was being transferred to cover outstanding family obligations. This is very generous. The attorney spoke for the first time. Given your situation, Miss Scott, I would say your family is being extraordinarily accommodating. My situation. Like I was the problem. I do not understand. I looked up at Richard, let my eyes get wet on the edge of tears. Why the cottage? That is Grandma's house. Was her house. Sloan said, already bored. Her phone sat on the desk, Instagram open. Ready to document my breakdown for 15,000 followers. She has been dead for 3 years, Jordan. You cannot even afford the property taxes. But I could figure something out. I pleaded, my voice going higher. Please, Dad. It is all I have. You will have $50,000. Richard checked his Rolex. 3:17. He was getting impatient. That is more than most people your age have managed to save. You should be grateful. Grateful. The word tasted like poison. Cannot we find another way? I was pleading now, full performance. I could get a job. A real job. I could help pay off the debts myself. Bryce actually laughed. Doing what, Jordan? You have been coding in your apartment for 6 years. No professional network. You would be lucky to land an entry-level position. It is better this way. You cannot afford the upkeep anyway, Sloan said, not looking up. And honestly, living in the past is not healthy. You need to move forward. The attorney tapped the signature line on page 19. Miss Scott, I have another appointment at 4. If we could finalize this now. Richard leaned forward, his expression shifting from paternal pretense to cold demand. Sign it or get nothing. We are done coddling you, Jordan. It is time you learned how the real world works. The clock on the wall read 3:40. 2. 18 minutes until market close. Sign the document. Richard bit off each word. I reached for the pen, allowing my hand to tremble visibly. But before the tip touched the paper, I stopped. I want a copy? I whispered. For my records. Grandma always said to keep records. Richard rolled his eyes. For God's sake. It is standard procedure, Mr. Scott, the attorney murmured, pulling a duplicate set from his briefcase. He slid the second set across the mahogany. I signed the first one, then the second. My handwriting looked broken, uncertain on both. Richard signed. The attorney notarized both stacks with efficient, heavy thunks of his stamp. Richard snatched his copy before the ink dried, never glancing past page 2. Never even looking at page 7. I pulled my copy toward me, folding it slowly, clutching it to my chest like a security blanket. Thank you, Daddy. Excellent. Richard stood. I am glad we could resolve this efficiently. The funds will be transferred to your account by end of week. They left. All of them. But last night at family dinner. Sloan already typing something on her phone, Bryce shooting me one last pitying look. The attorney packed his briefcase without a word. The door closed. Silence. I counted to 20, making absolutely sure they were gone. The performance was over. The tears vanished. Gone like turning off a faucet. I checked my paydeck, Philip. 3:47. 13 minutes to close. Checkmate. I whispered to the empty room. The silence of the library was profound, broken only by my own steady breathing. I stood and smoothed my jacket, checking that the duplicate original, signed and notarized, was secure in the inner pocket. I was not leaving yet. I walked to the French doors that opened onto the terrace. Outside, the garden party was already starting. I could hear the string quartet tuning up. 11 minutes until they realized what they had done. The champagne tasted like victory to Richard. At least, that was what he thought as he raised his glass at the podium. Surveying 200 guests scattered across the manicured lawn of the Scott estate. String quartet, uniformed servers, flower arrangements that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I stood near the back, black suit sharp as a blade, watching him perform. To family legacy? Richard announced, his voice carrying across the garden with practiced authority. But to the businesses that define excellence in our community. Take Aether Systems, for example. Remarkable cybersecurity firm. Their initial public offering today represents everything American enterprise should aspire to. Innovation, discipline, vision. Sloan stood beside him, phone held high. She was on an Instagram live stream. 15,000 viewers, watching her father pontificate about success, while she angled for the perfect shot. Her smile was luminous. She thought she had one. Unlike some hobbies. Richard continued, and I felt the shift coming before he made it. Dinner. Not everyone understands the difference between serious business and playing with computers in a basement, but that is fine. The world needs all types. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. Several guests glanced my direction. Dinner. Recognizing the girl Sloan had just publicly ridiculed. I did not flinch. 4 o'clock exactly. The closing bell rang somewhere in Manhattan, and the universe tilted on its axis. Bloomberg terminals throughout the party erupted simultaneously. Sharp electronic chimes. Guests. Phones buzzing in pockets, clutches, jacket linings. The string quartet faltered mid-phrase as musicians checked their devices. What the hell? Someone muttered near the bar. The murmur started low, building like a wave gathering strength. AET up 400%. Ether Systems' initial public offering closed at $336 per share. That is impossible. The opening was $84. Richard kept talking, oblivious, still mid-sentence about family values and business acumen. Still performing for an audience that was no longer listening. Preston Vance stepped forward from the crowd. Tailored gray suit. Dinner R. Quiet confidence of someone who had closed billion-dollar deals before breakfast. Ladies and gentlemen. His voice cut through Richard's speech without raising in volume. I apologize for the interruption, but I believe some clarification is needed. Richard stopped, confused, annoyed. Preston, this is not the time. I would like to introduce the founder and chief executive officer of Ether Systems. Preston turned, extending his hand toward me. J.M. Scott, who has been operating under her initials for privacy. Silence crashed over the garden like a physical force. 200 faces turned toward me. Mouths open. Eyes wide. The kind of stunned recognition that happens when reality rewrites itself in real time. Richard's face drained of color. All that expensive, Scotch-fueled confidence evaporated as his brain caught up to what his ears just heard. J.M. Someone whispered. Jordan Mary. I did not move. Did not speak. Let them process. Sloan's phone dropped 3 inches before she caught it. The live stream wobbled. Mattered bum. Capturing her expression perfectly, mathematical horror, beginning its slow crawl across her features. Richard recovered first. My daughter. He rushed toward me, arms spread wide for an embrace. I always believed in her vision. I always knew. I stepped back. One clean movement. His arms closed on empty air. He froze, recalculated, pivoted again. He turned to Preston. The friends and family initial public offering allocations. We should discuss those. I am sure Jordan has reserved shares for her family. Have you not, sweetheart? Sloan's fingers flew across her phone screen. I could see the calculation happening in real time. $336 per share, multiplied by whatever allocation she thought she deserved. Her eyes glazed, with the kind of greed that makes people stupid. Bryce Sterling stood near the fountain, frozen. His investment banking brain doing the math differently. His commission on the cottage sale. Pocket change. Nothing. Less than nothing compared to what he just realized he lost. The time for silent triumph was over. It was time for the truth. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the document I had folded, and tucked away in the library 13 minutes ago. The duplicate original. About those allocations, Father. My voice carried, calm, clear, but the voice night at family dinner. The voice I used in board meetings when I was about to fire someone who thought they were indispensable. Dinner. There is a clause in the document you signed. Page 7, paragraph 3. Richard's face shifted, confusion turning to dawning comprehension. What document? The one you witnessed at 3:40, 7 post-meridian. The trust fund release and property transfer. The one you were so eager to have me sign, that you did not read past page 2. The garden went silent again. But even the string quartet stopped pretending to play. I stood there, ready to deliver the cold, hard conclusion to the performance they had orchestrated. The garden was paralyzed, staring at the document in my hand. But Richard's face was a study in rapid onset panic as he realized the identity of J.M. Scott was less important than the consequences of her signature. The one you witnessed at 3:40, 7 post-meridian. I repeated, my voice steady. The trust fund release and property transfer. The one you were so eager to have me sign that you did not read past page 2. I unfolded the paper. But last night at family dinner, holding it up so the guests closest could see the notary seal, the witness signatures, and Richard's own attorney's stamp at the bottom. Complete waiver of all future familial financial claims. I read aloud, each word landing like a hammer blow. Including but not limited to friends and family stock allocations, inheritance expectations, and corporate benefits. Sloan's phone clattered to the flagstone. But last night at family dinner, it did not shatter. It just lay there, the live stream still running, capturing her face as the understanding destroyed her from the inside out. Her mathematical horror was complete. Preston stepped forward again, a numbers man, always ready with the data. The friends and family allocation was 1.5 million shares. At the closing price of $336 per share, that is $504 million. Someone gasped. Multiple someones. The math was too big, too devastating, too perfectly brutal to process quietly. You forced them to sign it away. Preston continued, looking directly at Richard. For $50,000 and a cottage worth $850,000. Richard's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. No, sound emerged. His lawyer brain was trying desperately to find the loophole, the out, the appeal. There was not one. He had witnessed the signature himself. Their greed had cost them everything. Your greed, I said, addressing the entire shocked assembly. That theft cost them $500 million. Sloan made a sound. Not quite a sob, not quite a scream, but a noise that belonged to someone watching their entire future collapse in real time. Her attempt at surgical cruelty had resulted in her own professional and financial immolation. I turned to Richard, making sure every witness heard what came next. Other Systems is also raising Scott and Partners' cybersecurity premiums by 20%. Effective immediately. Consider it professional risk assessment based on high-risk client status. There were 140 witnesses, including his law partners, the judges he golfed with, and everyone who mattered in his professional world. Sloan's Instagram live stream had captured everything. Bryce's investment banking reputation just died, killed by association. Nobody trusts a banker who cannot spot a trap that obvious. I folded the document, slid it back into my jacket. I had come to confront their contempt and claim my worth. The job was done. I turned toward the exit. Enjoy the party, I said over my shoulder. It is the last thing I am paying for. Callan waited by the town car, his posture military straight. He opened the door without a word. I slid into the leather seat. The door closed with a solid thunk that sounded like a vault ceiling. I had chosen cold, unassailable justice. And the catharsis of that choice was overwhelming. Behind me, the garden erupted in whispers, phones out, messages flying. But last night at family dinner, the story was spreading like wildfire through networks that would carry it to every corner of their professional lives. The car pulled away from the estate, away from the people inside who thought I was too stupid to read fine print. They were wrong. And now everyone knew exactly how wrong they had been. The financial and emotional separation was complete. 3 days later, the Wall Street Journal sat folded on the leather seat beside me. I did not need to open it again. The headline was burned into my vision. Mystery Chief Executive Officer J.M. Scott, revealed as 26-year-old tech prodigy. Forbes put my net worth at $2.8 billion. They were conservative. My phone had not stopped buzzing since dawn. Interview requests from Bloomberg, CNBC, TechCrunch. Acquisition offers that started with 9 figures. Investor meetings that would have made my father weep if he understood what they meant. He did not. He never would. The sport utility vehicle glided through morning traffic at 8 in the morning. Kaylin was silent behind the wheel. My first board meeting as publicly known chief executive officer started. In 90 minutes. 3 acquisition targets on the agenda. Expansion plans that would double our cybersecurity footprint within 18 months. But first, there was other business to handle. My phone vibrated. Email notification from Willow Holdings Limited Liability Company, the shell company I established 6 months ago. Subject line: property transfer complete. Rosewood Cottage was mine. The bank was happy to sell the mortgage note holding the cottage as collateral. A clean transaction, cash for debt. Since Richard's ownership was contingent on the contract he had violated, I was now the creditor, holding the keys. I tapped open the attached property inspection report. Richard and Sloan had been using my grandmother's house for storage. The inspector's photos told a different story than the valuable antiques they claimed. Reproduction furniture, costume jewelry, and fake Tiffany boxes. Another scheme, another shortcut. They thought I was too stupid to notice. I attached the digital eviction notice to my response email. 30 days to remove their belongings. Standard legal language. Professional. Cold. Send. My father's attorney called 6 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail, listening while I watched the city roll past my window. Threats of litigation, accusations of theft, of manipulating a confused old man who only wanted to help his daughter. I saved the voicemail as evidence. Review the quitclaim deed. I texted back. You witnessed the signature. Everything is legal. This conversation is over. Block number. Sloan's voicemail came through next. I played the first 3 seconds. Rage, tears, something about betrayal and family, and how could I do this to them after everything they had done for me? Delete. Do not need to hear the rest. Bryce texted. Can we talk? Block. Delete. Gone. The family group chat sat at the top of my messages. 17 unread texts since last night. Richard trying to explain. Sloan demanding I fix this. But distant cousins chiming in with their opinions about my responsibilities and my ungrateful nature. I deleted the entire thread without reading past the previews. Then I changed my phone number. The process took 4 minutes. Everyone else could figure out how to contact me through official channels, if they were worth my time. The board meeting agenda glowed on my tablet screen. I was ready. More than ready. The sport utility vehicle pulled up to Aether Systems headquarters at 8:40, 7 in the morning. Modern glass and steel. Our name in brushed metal letters that caught the morning sun. Through the glass walls, I could see the lobby. 200 employees gathered. Waiting. Kaylin opened my door. The cool morning air carried the scent of success and coffee and something new. They started clapping before I was through the entrance. A standing ovation that echoed off the marble floors and high ceilings. My people. My team. The family I chose instead of the one I was born into. Preston appeared at my elbow. Ready? JM. I looked at the faces watching me. Young engineers who bet their careers on my vision. Executives who left prestigious positions to build something real. I have been ready my whole life, I told him. They just could not see it. We walked through the applause, through the lobby, toward the executive elevators that would take me to the boardroom where I belonged. The past stays behind me where it belongs. The future is mine. Built on my terms, and finally free of their contempt.